The challenge. The Varangian warships hung in orbit around Colony S7 like enormous metallic predators, their hulls gleaming under the light of the distant sun. On the view screen of the Earth diplomatic vessel Tranquility, Ambassador Marcus Villeneuve watched them with thinly veiled anxiety. The alien vessels were a technological marvel, living metal fused with crystalline structures that defied human engineering principles. Yet it wasn't their technological superiority that made his palms sweat. It was what they represented. 3 weeks of bombardment, said Captain Sorensen, standing beside him. 7,000 colonists sheltering underground. Food reserves at 30% and falling. Her voice was flat, professional, masking the rage simmering beneath. Villeneuve nodded. And the Galactic Concord does nothing. They've issued 3 statements of concern, replied his aide, Way, checking his tablet. But the Varangians hold veto power in the Security Council. The ambassador's shoulders slumped slightly. Everyone knew why the powerful alien coalition had blockaded the colony. S7 sat at the edge of a disputed sector, but more importantly, geological surveys had recently discovered vast deposits of quantum-stabilized minerals beneath its surface, materials essential for faster-than-light travel. The Varangians wanted exclusive mining rights, and they were willing to starve out the colony to get them. Ambassador, Wei said, your meeting with Supreme Warlord Krax is in 1 hour. Villeneuve straightened his formal diplomatic attire, a fusion of traditional Earth formal wear with symbols representing humanity's place in the galactic community. He'd spent 20 years in diplomatic service, had negotiated treaties with 12 different species. None of it had prepared him for the Varangians, a warrior culture that viewed diplomacy as weakness. The special envoy has arrived, announced the ship's eye. The ambassador frowned. Special envoy. I didn't request. The door hissed open, revealing a slender woman in her mid-30s. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit with no insignia, her black hair pulled back in a practical bun. No weapons, no ceremonial attire, nothing to suggest she was anyone of importance. Dr. Ilara Chen, she introduced herself, extending a hand. Earth Intelligence Division. Your backup plan. Villeneuve's face reddened. I wasn't informed. That was intentional, she replied calmly. The Varangians have spies everywhere. May I see the briefing materials? Wei hesitated, looking to the ambassador, who nodded reluctantly. As the woman flipped through the intelligence reports and cultural briefings, Villeneuve studied her. She seemed unremarkable. Average height, athletic but not imposing, with an air of quiet confidence. This won't work, she finally declared, handing back the tablet. What won't? Asked Villeneuve. Your negotiation strategy. The Varangians respect strength, not reason. You enter that room with charts and legal precedents. You'll leave with nothing. The ambassador bristled. With respect, Doctor, I've been handling interspecies diplomacy since before I was born, I'm sure, she cut in. But the Varangians are different. They're testing us. This isn't just about mining rights. It's about determining humanity's place in their hierarchy. Captain Sorensen crossed her arms. And your suggestion? Ilara's lips curved into a small smile. I'll handle the meeting. Absolutely not, Villeneuve protested. This is a delicate diplomatic situation that requires. They've already killed 14 people through starvation and medical supply shortages, Ilara said quietly. There's nothing delicate about it. They want to know if humans are predators or prey. The conference room aboard the Varangian flagship Eternal Conquest was designed to intimidate. The ceiling soared 20 meters high, the walls decorated with trophies from conquered worlds. The temperature was uncomfortably warm for humans, the gravity set slightly higher than Earth standard. Every detail calculated to put visitors at a disadvantage. Supreme Warlord Krax loomed at the head of a massive obsidian table, his reptilian features impassive. 3 meters tall, covered in iridescent scales with bony ridges framing his face, he was the embodiment of Varangian might. His military advisors flanked him, each bearing the scars of countless conflicts. "The human delegation," announced a translator drone. Ilara walked in alone, ignoring the murmurs of surprise. No ambassador, no aides, no security, just a solitary human female in a plain jumpsuit, carrying nothing but a small datapad. Krax's inner eyelids flickered, the Varangian equivalent of a raised eyebrow. "Where is Ambassador Villeneuve?" he demanded, voice like gravel. Indisposed, Ilara replied, taking a seat without waiting for permission. "I'm the human authorized to negotiate for S7. One of Krax's advisors leaned forward, mandibles clicking in agitation. "This is an insult. They send a female with no rank or honors." Ilara smiled slightly. "I'm curious, Commander, how many battles have you personally won? Not your troops, not your ships, you specifically." The alien sputtered. 23 planetary campaigns. "From the comfort of your command ship, no doubt," she remarked. "On Earth, we have a saying. Those who can do. Those who can't. Command from orbit." The room went deathly silent. The translator drone hovered nervously, its lights flashing as it processed the deliberate insult. Krax tilted his massive head, studying her with newfound interest. "You have courage, little human, or perhaps merely ignorance of how many have died for lesser impertinence." "Neither," Ilara replied. "Just efficiency. I could spend hours feeding your ego before you reject our proposals, or we could skip to the part where you threaten us, and I respond." The warlord's scales rippled with amusement. "Very well. Remove your colony from S7 within 10 cycles, leaving all mining equipment, or we will reduce it to ash." "Counterproposal," Ilara said calmly. "Lift your blockade, compensate the families of those who died, and we'll consider a joint mining operation, with a 60-40 split in our favor." Laughter erupted around the table, harsh, barking sounds from alien throats. "You are either mad or a fool," Krax declared, rising to his full height. "The Varangian Empire does not share. We take." Ilara remained seated, unfazed. "Then we have a problem, because humans don't surrender what's ours. Not to you, not to anyone." The warlord's amusement vanished. "Look around you, human. Your species has been spacefaring for barely a century. We conquered our first alien world before your ancestors invented the wheel. And yet," Ilara noted, "here I sit, unafraid." Something shifted in Krax's demeanor, a predator recognizing an unexpected challenge. He leaned forward, massive hands splayed on the obsidian surface. "There is a tradition among my people," he said slowly. "When diplomacy fails, champions may settle matters through combat, a test of strength and will." Murmurs spread among his advisors, some sounding concerned. "Supreme Warlord," one began, "the human is." Krax silenced him with a gesture. "I invoke the right of challenge. One combat, one champion from each side. If your champion wins, we withdraw and offer restitution as you suggested. If our champion wins, S7 becomes Varangian territory, and your people leave with only what they can carry." On the Tranquility, Ambassador Villeneuve paced frantically. "She's going to get us all killed, agreeing to ritual combat. It's barbaric." Wei looked up from the cultural database he'd been frantically searching. "Actually, sir, the right of challenge is their most sacred tradition. By accepting, Dr. Chen has forced them to honor the outcome. If she'd refused, they would have seen it as confirmation of human weakness." "That's assuming we win," Captain Sorensen pointed out. "The Varangians breed warriors from birth. Who exactly is going to face whatever champion they select?" The door slid open, and Ilara entered, looking completely unflustered. "You," Villeneuve snapped. "What have you done?" "Secured us a fighting chance," she replied. "Literally." "And who exactly is going to fight for us?" the captain demanded. "We have a security detail of 8, none trained for alien combat." Ilara began removing items from her pockets, placing them carefully on a table. A simple metal pendant, a worn photograph, A small mechanical puzzle. I am, she said quietly. The ambassador laughed bitterly. You? Against a Varangian war-bred killing machine. This is beyond reckless. I wasn't sent here by accident, Ilara replied, now removing her shoes. Before I joined Earth Intelligence, I spent 12 years in the Special Operations Xenocombat Division. Wei's eyes widened. That's classified. Most people think it's a myth. It's not. She rolled her shoulders, stretching methodically. The division was created after the Proxima incident, when we realized how vulnerable humans were in physical confrontations with most galactic species. Even with training, Sorensen argued, you're going up against an alien with twice your mass, exoskeletal armor, and probably augmentations. Ilara nodded. Yes. Their champion is Vroktar, the undefeated, 7 feet tall, cybernetically enhanced, responsible for exterminating the resistance on Arcturus IV. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The combat begins in 6 hours, Ilara continued. I need to prepare. As she headed toward the door, Villeneuve asked in a subdued voice, do we have any chance at all? Ilara paused, her expression unreadable. Ambassador, there's something you should understand about humans. We're not the strongest species, or the fastest, or the most technologically advanced, but we're the most adaptable. A small smile touched her lips. And they have no idea what that means. The Varangian combat arena was a circular pit 30 meters across, its floor covered in dark sand that had absorbed the blood of countless combatants. Tiered seating surrounded it, filled with thousands of Varangians, their scales gleaming in the harsh artificial lighting. The air smelled of ozone and alien incense, part religious ceremony, part blood sport spectacle. In one section sat the human delegation, Villeneuve, Wei, and Captain Sorensen with her security team. Looking small and vulnerable among the massive aliens, opposite them, on an elevated platform, Supreme Warlord Krax presided over the proceedings, flanked by his high command. A deep, resonating tone silenced the crowd. A massive door on one side of the arena slid open, and Vroktar emerged to deafening cheers. He was everything Ilara had described, and worse. A mountain of muscle and cybernetic enhancements, his natural armor supplemented with ceremonial battle plates that glinted in the light. In one hand, he carried a traditional war glaive. In the other, a neural disruptor. From the opposite entrance came Ilara, looking impossibly small by comparison. She wore only a simple combat suit, carrying no weapons. The crowd's reaction shifted from wild cheering to confused murmurs, then mocking laughter. The combat master, a scared veteran with ceremonial markings, stepped to the center of the arena. Champions, he intoned, approach and be recognized. As they stood before him, the size difference was staggering. Vroktar towered over Ilara, his shadow engulfing her completely. Combat is to surrender or death, the master declared. No outside interference is permitted. The right of challenge is sacred, its outcome binding upon all. He raised a ceremonial staff. Champions, prepare. Vroktar beat his weapons against his chest plate, roaring a challenge that echoed throughout the arena. Ilara simply stood still, eyes closed, breathing steady. Begin. The staff struck the ground with a resonant clang. Vroktar didn't hesitate. He lunged forward with frightening speed for his size, the war glaive sweeping in a deadly arc. But Ilara wasn't there anymore. She had stepped inside his reach, swift and fluid as water, one hand touching his armored forearm as she passed. The Varangian whirled, confusion evident in his movements. He'd expected to end the fight with a single blow. Instead, he found himself striking at empty air as Ilara moved around him with an economy of motion that seemed almost casual. Fight, human, he snarled, switching to the neural disruptor and firing a pulse that should have paralyzed her nervous system. Ilara sidestepped, letting the energy dissipate harmlessly against the arena wall. I am fighting, she replied calmly. Just not the way you expect. In the human section, Wei leaned toward Villeneuve. What is she doing? She hasn't even attempted to strike him. The ambassador shook his head. I don't know, but the crowd's getting restless. He was right. The spectators were growing increasingly agitated, some shouting insults, others demanding action. To them, this wasn't combat. It was evasion, dishonorable, and cowardly. Vroktar seemed to feed off their energy. He redoubled his efforts, combining weapon strikes with devastating physical attacks. But always, Ilara was just beyond his reach, or sliding past him with millimeters to spare. Occasionally, her hand would brush against his armor or a joint in his exoskeleton, the touch so light it seemed accidental. Stop dancing and fight. The Varangian champion bellowed, frustration evident in his increasingly wild attacks. Why? Ilara asked, ducking under a sweeping blow. So you can use your superior strength, your cybernetics, your armor? She slipped behind him, fingers briefly pressing at the base of his spine. I'm using my advantages. On his command platform, Krax leaned forward, inner eyelids blinking rapidly. Something wasn't right. The human should have been exhausted by now, yet she moved with the same fluid precision as when they'd started. 10 minutes into the combat, Vroktar stumbled for the first time, his left leg momentarily failing to support his weight. He recovered quickly, but the crowd noticed, a ripple of uneasy murmurs spreading through the arena. 15 minutes in, his right arm began to tremble when he raised the war glaive. By 20 minutes, his breathing had become labored, his movements increasingly uncoordinated. What's happening to him? Captain Sorensen whispered, fascinated despite her tension. Wei's eyes widened in sudden understanding. It's her background. Before intelligence work, she was in xenobiology, specialized in comparative physiology. Meaning? Villeneuve asked. She knows exactly where their vulnerabilities are. All those little touches. She's been targeting nerve clusters, pressure points, disrupting his cybernetic interfaces. As if confirming his analysis, Vroktar suddenly dropped his neural disruptor, his hand spasming uncontrollably. Rage and confusion warred on his alien features as he found himself increasingly unable to control his own body. What have you done to me? He demanded, voice slurring slightly. Ilara circled him calmly. Pressure point manipulation. Temporary nerve blocks. Disruption of the bioelectric field that integrates your cybernetics. For the first time, she smiled. Your species evolved from apex predators, impressive natural weapons, but limited self-repair capabilities. You compensate with technology, not adaptation. The Varangian roared and charged in desperation, bringing his war glaive down in a blow that would have split her in two. But his balance was gone, his coordination shattered. Ilara sidestepped easily, then struck for the first time. 2 precise blows to nerve clusters at the base of his skull. Vroktar, the undefeated, crashed to the arena floor, conscious but paralyzed, his massive body betrayed by its own nervous system. Silence fell over the arena, absolute and heavy. In the Varangian combat tradition, this was the moment when the victor would deliver the killing blow, claiming the honor of ending their opponent's life. Instead, Ilara knelt beside the fallen champion and spoke quietly so only he could hear. I could kill you, but that's not how humans prove their strength. She stood and addressed the arena. The paralysis is temporary. He will recover fully within an hour. She turned to face Supreme Warlord Krax directly. This match is concluded. Humanity claims victory by incapacitation. Echoes across the stars. The silence in the Varangian arena stretched like an over-tightened cable ready to snap. 7,000 alien warriors, bred for combat, raised on blood and conquest, watched in stunned disbelief as a human female stood over their fallen champion. No killing blow, no triumph, just calm certainty. Supreme Warlord Krax rose slowly from his command platform, his massive form casting a long shadow across the arena sand. The assembled crowd turned to him, awaiting his response. By Varangian tradition, He could accept the outcome or declare it void on grounds of dishonor, though the latter would forever stain his lineage's reputation. Ilara met his gaze steadily, showing neither fear nor arrogance. The human fought without weapons, Krax finally announced, his voice carrying throughout the arena. Some would call this dishonorable. He paused, inner eyelids flicking rapidly as he studied her. Others might recognize the greater skill required to defeat an armed opponent with bare hands. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a mix of outrage and reluctant admiration. The human champion has prevailed, Krax declared. The right of challenge has been honored. The colony remains under Earth jurisdiction, and reparations will be paid as agreed. In the human delegation section, Ambassador Villeneuve released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Captain Sorensen gripped the railing before her so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Wyatt was frantically taking notes, documenting every word and gesture for Earth intelligence. As medics entered the arena to attend to the fallen Vroktar, Krax descended from his platform and approached Ilara directly, a breach of protocol that sent ripples of surprise through the assembled warriors. "You could have killed him," the warlord stated, not a question but an observation. "Yes," Ilara confirmed. "Why didn't you?" She considered her answer carefully, aware that hundreds of translator drones were broadcasting her words throughout the Varangian fleet. Humans don't measure strength by our ability to take life, but by our choice when to spare it. Krax's head tilted slightly, an interesting philosophy for a species that developed nuclear weapons before achieving unified planetary government. "We contain multitudes," Ilara replied with a small smile. "It's what makes us dangerous, and worth knowing." The Supreme Warlord studied her for a long moment. The Varangian Empire has existed for 12,000 years. In that time, we have encountered 173 spacefaring species. Only 6 ever defeated a Varangian champion in single combat. His scales rippled in what might have been amusement. None of them looked like you. "Appearances can be deceiving," she said. "Something to remember about humans." Krax nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, if not quite respect. "The blockade will be lifted within the hour. Our ships will withdraw to the agreed boundary. The terms of our arrangement will be transmitted to your vessel." He turned to leave, then paused. "One question, human. Your technique, could it be taught to Varangians? With modifications for your physiology, yes." "Interesting." With that cryptic response, he departed, his entourage falling in behind him. Back on the Tranquility, the human delegation gathered in the conference room, the atmosphere thick with relief and lingering tension. Medical officers had examined Ilara thoroughly, finding nothing more serious than minor bruising and elevated stress hormones. "The Varangian fleet is withdrawing as promised," reported Captain Sorensen, studying the tactical display. Colony S7 reports emergency supplies already arriving from their support ships. Ambassador Villeneuve paced the room, diplomatic composure finally cracking now that they were in private. "That was the most reckless, unauthorized, brilliant maneuver I've witnessed in 20 years of service." He stopped in front of Ilara. "You should be court-martialed. You should also probably receive the Star of Terra." She smiled faintly. "I'll settle for a hot shower and 12 hours of sleep." "You're not getting either just yet," came a new voice as the view screen activated, revealing Fleet Admiral Helena Choi, her stern features framed by short silver hair. "Report, Dr. Chen." Ilara straightened. "Mission accomplished, Admiral. The colony is secure, and we've established a new diplomatic framework with the Varangians." "I've reviewed the arena footage," Choi said. "Impressive work. Though I note you revealed certain capabilities we'd preferred to keep classified." "It was necessary," Ilara replied. "The Varangians respect strength, but they're also pragmatic. They needed to see that humans aren't just technologically capable but physically dangerous when required." The Admiral nodded slowly. "The strategic implications are significant. The Galactic Concord is buzzing with the news. 3 minor species have already requested diplomatic relations with Earth, species that previously wouldn't give us the time of day. Wei looked up from his datapad. We're also receiving unusual communications from the Varangian diplomatic corps. They're requesting cultural exchanges. Cultural exchanges, Villeneuve repeated incredulously. The Varangians, specifically, they want information about human martial arts, medical practices, and something they're translating as pressure science. Wei looked bemused. I think they mean acupressure and similar techniques. Admiral Choi's expression remained serious despite the absurdity. This is an unexpected development, but potentially valuable. Ilara, you've created an opening we never anticipated. Permission to speak freely, Admiral. When Choi nodded, Ilara continued. We've been approaching interspecies relations all wrong. We keep trying to appear non-threatening, emphasizing our technological achievements while downplaying our biological capabilities. But that's exactly backward for species like the Varangians. They respect physical prowess first, technology second. You're suggesting we showcase human martial artists and combat specialists as diplomatic assets. Villeneuve sounded scandalized. Among other uniquely human traits, Ilara clarified. Our adaptability. Our ability to function in diverse environments. Our capacity to learn alien fighting techniques and modify them to our physiology. Admiral Choi leaned forward. You may be onto something, Doctor. The archivists of Deneb have been studying human physiological responses for years. They find our ability to recover from injuries particularly fascinating. Exactly, Ilara nodded. What we consider ordinary, a broken bone that heals, a child learning to walk through trial and error. The fact that we can be trained to withstand extreme temperatures. Many species consider these things remarkable, even intimidating. The view screen split, revealing a second caller, Secretary General Okafor of the United Earth Government, her dignified features grave. I've been listening, she said, and I find this perspective intriguing. Dr. Chen, the Varangian Supreme Warlord, has sent an unusual request directly to my office. He's proposed a formal alliance between our peoples. Stunned silence filled the conference room. An alliance. Villeneuve finally managed, after they just tried to steal our colony. The Varangians respect strength above all, Ilara reminded him. By their logic, we've proven ourselves worthy partners precisely because we stood up to them. Secretary General Okafor nodded. That aligns with their message. They specifically cited demonstrated combat prowess combined with tactical restraint as qualities they seek in allies. There's more to it, Admiral Choi added. Intelligence suggests the Varangians are concerned about expansion from the Voth hierarchy in the Cygnus arm. They've been looking for allies with particular capabilities, like defeating cybernetically enhanced warriors without weapons. Ilara suggested dryly. Precisely. The Secretary General's expression remained serious. This represents a potential paradigm shift in our galactic position. The Varangians control access to 17 key trade routes and hold veto power in the Concord Security Council. Ma'am, Ilara said carefully, if I may, this alliance could be valuable, but we should proceed with caution. The Varangians respect strength, but they also test it repeatedly. They'll push boundaries constantly. Which is why, Okafor replied, I'm appointing you as special envoy to the Varangian Empire, effective immediately. Ilara blinked in surprise. Madam Secretary, I'm an intelligence operative, not a diplomat. Today you prove you're both, Okafor said firmly. Ambassador Villeneuve will continue his excellent work with the Galactic Concord while you establish our new relationship with the Varangians. Admiral Choi has already approved your reassignment. As the implications sank in, Wei leaned over to whisper to Captain Sorensen, I think we just witnessed the birth of a new diplomatic doctrine. 6 months later, Ilara stood on a balcony overlooking New Beijing's diplomatic quarter, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The Varangian embassy, a startling new addition to Earth's skyline, rose nearby, its architecture a striking blend of alien angles, and human-influenced design elements. "Contemplating your handiwork?" asked a familiar voice. She turned to find Admiral Choi joining her, civilian clothes replacing her usual uniform. "Just enjoying the view," Ilara replied. "It's good to be home, even briefly." 3 successful negotiation cycles with the Varangians, trade agreements with the Den of Archivists, and defensive pacts with 7 previously neutral systems. Choi leaned against the railing. "The Chen Doctrine is officially part of diplomatic training now." Ilara winced. "I wish they wouldn't call it that." Too late. The concept that humanity's biological adaptability and resilience are diplomatic assets has transformed our approach to interspecies relations. The Admiral gestured toward a datapad. "The Varangians have invited us to participate in their Grand Conclave for the first time in history." I saw the invitation. Supreme Warlord Krax specifically requested a demonstration of something called the ancient Earth art of Aikido. Choi laughed softly. "Apparently throwing opponents 3 times your size without injuring them has made quite an impression." Ilara's expression grew serious. "It's not all positive. The Voth hierarchy has accelerated their military buildup, and 3 previously neutral species have aligned against us. Because they fear us now," Choi acknowledged. "But fear can be managed more effectively than contempt. Before your mission, half the galaxy thought humans were soft, technologically precocious primates playing at being a galactic power. Now they know better. And the other half is watching very, very carefully." The Admiral handed her a secure data crystal. "Your next assignment. The Meridian Alliance is requesting human assistance with the situation on their border world." Ilara took the crystal, weighing it in her palm. "They previously refused all diplomatic contact with Earth. That was before footage of your arena match with Rokhtar became the most viewed Sena-cultural exchange in Concord history." Choi's lips twitched. "Apparently, being able to neutralize opponents without killing them is a highly valued skill in certain corners of the galaxy." Ilara looked out at the sprawling city below, at the mix of human architecture and alien influences that had gradually transformed Earth's skyline. What had happened in that arena had changed more than just her life or the fate of Colony S7. It had altered humanity's place in the cosmic order. "You know," she said quietly, "when I was training in xenocombat, my instructor told me something I never forgot. He said, humans aren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but we're the ones that other species will think twice about provoking." Admiral Choi nodded. "A lesson the Varangians learned firsthand. And now others will too." Ilara pocketed the data crystal, not through violence, but through the understanding that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our adaptability. We learn, we evolve, we surprise. Below them, the first Varangian trading vessel permitted to land directly on Earth was being guided to the spaceport, its arrival heralding a new chapter in interstellar relations, one where humanity's place among the stars had been irrevocably transformed, not by superior firepower or technological marvels, but by the unique capabilities of the human mind and body. The lesson echoed across the stars. Underestimate humans at your peril.